What's good? This is Trey. Welcome to this presentation. The topic for today is what is that quality that triggers sexual attraction in a woman? That quality. Well, women are attracted to men who have the power to move them to higher frequency and intense emotional states. So that is the quality you must develop as a man. It's the quality or the ability to move a woman to more higher frequency and intense emotional states. If you look back at the men who were able to get with the girl that you wanted, or you look at the times when you were able to get with a girl who could have got with other guys, but she chose you. And we're speaking of sexual attraction. So that means the guy that she's choosing to have sex with, right? Not the guy that she's using, not the guy that she's getting with out of convenience, the guy who she's sexually attracted to, right? The guy that is um, magnetizing this woman to him, where she can't even control it. She can't stop it even if she wanted to, right? Because that guy is triggering higher frequency and more intense emotional states in her than any other guy. So how do you move a woman to a higher frequency emotional state? How do you trigger intense emotions in a woman? You do this, first of all, the foundation of being able to do this is by displaying that you are of higher status or higher value than her. If she perceives you to be of lower status or lower value than her, your communication is not going to trigger her in a more intense or higher frequency emotional level than the guy who she perceives to be of higher status or higher value than her. And this is true for women, but this is also true for men too. It's just not a sexual attraction thing, but you become more attractive, so to speak, to anyone who you can create the perception that you are of higher status or higher value than them. Now, when we're talking about sexual attraction, females are literally genetically wired to select sexual partners who display that they have the highest value or status that she has access to. So notice that I'm saying that she has access to, right? So she's getting with the guy who has the highest value or the highest status that she can communicate with, that she can interact with, that she can actually have a relationship with. So what's interesting about this, I look at some of my past relationships and some of the girls, they were into certain celebrities, right? But they didn't have access to those celebrities. However, I was demonstrating similar um, qualities that they um, associated with that celebrity, and they had access to me. So they ended up, you know, feeling attraction for me. So that's that's basically what's going on here. It's like you have to somehow um, position yourself as um, higher status or higher value than her, and then you have to make yourself available, right? So like some guys may get this understanding and take it to the extreme and try to act like they're so high status and so high value, but she still has to feel like she has access to you. Like if she feels like you're too high value or too high status, um she may not want to get with you sexually, because then she'll feel like you may hit it and bounce, you know and most girls don't want that. I mean, some of them are okay with that. They'll just have like those one night stands. But a lot of times a girl wants to know that you're not just gonna dip off on her. So yeah, you have to create this perception that, yeah, I'm higher status, I'm higher value, but you do have access to me. Right? So social conditioning, what has made the game kind of difficult for men is because they've been given incorrect information. Me as well. Like the reason I struggled with women, just quickly, if you don't know my story, I didn't get my first kiss or lose my virginity or get my first girlfriend until 24. And it's because a lot of it was because of social conditioning, social programming. I believed that women were looking, for a nice guy, a guy that's polite and civilized and all this stuff. And that's what's being preached. But the reality is her sexual desire, like the man who triggers sexual desire in her, is not the nice guy, is not the polite guy, is not the civilized guy. It's actually a different type of guy that we'll go into more detail on what that is. But as I said, it really is more about, is this guy higher value or higher status than me? That's more so what's triggering attraction in her. And it's interesting how there's different sexual strategy. There's a different natural sexual strategy for males versus females. Like a male naturally has the desire to have sex with as many healthy women as possible. Like he has the natural desire to spread his genes, right? He has millions of sperm. He just wants to spread his genes around so that he becomes immortalized, basically. Whereas the woman, her strategy is different because she has more investment in sex, right? From nature's perspective, right? Because if she has sex, right, um, she can get pregnant, and when she gets pregnant, she is, out of the sexual game for 8 months, right? So it's in her best interest to have sex with the highest value and highest status men that she has access to, right? Now, women are attracted to the alpha, right? If we're talking about higher status, high value, what is that? It's the alpha, it's the number one, it's the top dog, it's the boss, it's the king, it's the god. The man who's coming across as the best option that she has access to. So when you think alpha, because this is basically, if you want to trigger sexual attraction in a woman, you got to come across as alpha. And so you need to think king, leader, boss, the one who has the most power in the environment, access to the most resources, the most influence. We're looking at primal attraction, and we're going back to like caveman days. That um that software is still programmed in a woman. Like she still feels attraction based on the way things were back in caveman days. Like back in caveman days, it's like she'd be looking for the alpha, right? The man who has the most resources, right? The most food, who has the greatest alliances. Basically, the man is demonstrating the highest level of survival because it's in her best interest to have sex with the guy who has the best survival, because then her offspring has the highest chance of surviving. And she's genetically hardwired for that because nature wants the game of life to continue, and nature wants it to evolve. So a woman is equipped with the intuition and the ability to identify who is the alpha. Now, what makes this very interesting is that women are paying attention to your subcommunication because it's very tough to fake that. So when she's determining who's high status and who's high value and who's alpha, she's not necessarily looking at what you're demonstrating externally. Like, because you could like wear fake jewelry, you can kind of put on this fake bravado, you can have pretend like you have a lot of money, talk a big game, all that stuff. But it's very difficult to fake your subcommunication, which comes from your internal state, like your mindset and your emotional state. So she's looking at your subcommunications, and when I say subcommunications, I mean like the things you're demonstrating subconsciously, right? Like your tonality, your eye contact, your body language, the way you touch her, um, your emotional states, your mindsets. Like she's reading between the lines. She's looking at what you really mean versus what you're saying. What is the meaning behind your actions? Like those are the subcommunications. So another part to this, you may wonder is like, why do women tend to date assholes, right? We all know that women seem to um, go in the direction or, dates and want to spend time with guys who don't, who aren't necessarily nice guys. Let's just put it that way. And it's like, okay, why would she want to get with an asshole, like a guy that she's complaining about or a guy that doesn't treat her right, etc.? It's not so much that she wants an asshole, it's just that the assholes tend to be alpha, right? Like if you get yourself to a place of high value, of high status, you start to become an asshole. And what I mean by that is like you start to become very tell it like it is, my way or the highway kind of thing. Like you start to get into that vibe because once you know your value, and people are always trying to like get your value or like spend time with you and all that stuff, you start to have like strict boundaries, and say what you mean, because you don't want to um be nice and shit like that, because people will take advantage or try to leech onto you and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's not so much about being an asshole, it's more about being confident, dominant, assertive, having boundaries, speaking your mind, that kind of thing. And when a man is demonstrating those qualities, he's basically demonstrating that he's alpha. He's demonstrating he's high status, high value. So he's going to trigger attraction in a woman, and she's going to feel that attraction, and there's no choice behind it. It's not like she's choosing. This is the thing that guys think, that a woman is sitting down there. She's sitting down and logically choosing who she's attracted to. It. That is not the case. She's feeling attraction for a guy who's triggering it in her. So it's actually not her who's choosing to feel attraction. She just is feeling attraction because the guy is demonstrating attractive subcommunication. So she's genetically wired to feel attraction for a man who demonstrates alpha characteristics. This is the guy who's demonstrating high survival, right? He's demonstrating that he's winning in life. He's demonstrating that he has power, authority, And she's wired to reward a man who demonstrates alpha characteristics. If you've ever been on both sides of the spectrum, which I have, I've been on the side of the spectrum of being like the nice guy, a quote unquote beta male, just not really being assertive and dominant or displaying confidence in my interactions with women. And I noticed that they tend to punish that behavior. They tend to put you in the friend zone. They'll try to use you and manipulate you and all this stuff. Whereas when you demonstrate alpha characteristics, they're more likely to reward you. Like they want to do stuff for you. They want to cook for you. They want to spend time with you. They want to have sex with you. Like they reward the alpha. So a woman's biology will signal to her that she should mate with the man who is demonstrating that he is alpha, because that means her children will inherit those alpha characteristics, which means her offspring will be better able to survive and replicate. So if a guy's demonstrating confidence, assertiveness, dominance, leadership, grounded masculinity, these things, it's in her best interest to have sex with a guy like this, because if she has offspring, those offspring will gain those qualities as well. And that means those offspring will be better able to survive, versus if she had sex with a guy who was demonstrating the opposite qualities, which is being timid and passive and unsure and reactive, right? Imagine her kids get those qualities. They're not gonna be as effective in society, right? So to be high value or high status, basically you want to become the type of man who's providing the most value in the environment. Nowadays, maybe back in the caveman days, you could kind of just you could become alpha by just like forcing your dominant, like your physical prowess on people. Whereas now it's not like that. It's more about who's providing the most value in the environment, like who has the most influence in the environment, who can move people emotionally the most in the environment, who's has is demonstrating the most power in the environment. Like that's more, and it's more about like social power and like emotional power versus physical power. So when you're thinking about alpha, right? Because if you want to trigger sexual attraction in women at a higher level, you got to become alpha. And think of alpha as dangerous, but also intelligent. So what does that mean? The alpha, the reason he can trigger high levels of intense emotions and high frequency emotions in a woman is because he has an element of danger and intelligence behind his communication and his behavior. Like he is, um, he's operating from a higher level or higher perspective of things, right? He has a higher understanding of, how to get what he wants in the environment. He's more calibrated in the environment. He's more intelligent. He has more knowledge, access to more resources, things of such. So when somebody has that, they become dangerous, right? Because, if he wants, he can kind of affect you. If like an example would be, let's say you're at a party, right? And like the guy who would be considered the alpha in the party, let's just say he's the most well-known person in a party, right? And he's known for creating a great time in a party, and in the parties that are thrown in that venue, right? And he's connected to like some of the high status, high value people in the party, etc. Let's say you piss him off, right? He could potentially get you kicked out of the party, or he could prevent you from being aligned with certain people, because he'll tell them like, hey, stay away from that person, or that person's not cool, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you can lose a lot of value if you get on that person's bad side. So they become kind of dangerous, right? And the intelligence is more about the calibration, right? Because if you're alpha but you're violating people, or you're not making the environment, like you're not bringing value to the environment, then it doesn't have that effect. You're not going to come off as high value or high status. You're just going to come off as like an idiot, basically, or obnoxious, you know? So, um, another thing to look at is the alpha carries masculine energy, which means he's challenging and competitive, right? This is why, like being a nice guy, it's not very alpha, because a nice guy is not challenging and competitive. The nice guy is, if anything, he's trying to avoid confrontation. He's trying to avoid competition. He's just trying to, um, you know, not ruffle anybody's feathers. Right? He's just trying to keep the peace. And, you know, that isn't, that just doesn't, get a woman going emotionally. It just keeps things like it keeps things flatlined, right? When you're just like kind of just passive and timid. So yeah, beta, right? If alpha is, challenging and competitive and dominant and all that stuff, well, beta is the opposite. Beta is weak, it's soft, it's unconfrontational, it's passive, it's timid, right? So if you are demonstrating like weakness and demonstrating that you're soft or unconfrontational or passive or timid or any of these things, you're demonstrating that you're beta. So don't expect women to like be sexually attracted to that behavior, right? Because it's not communicating the right things. Beta male behavior is actually signals to a woman that you are too weak to survive, and if she mates with you, her offspring will also be weak, right? Like the beta males are the guys who kind of like, they just have to try to get on the alpha's good side. And so they're just trying to be nice and stuff like that. So a woman can tell, like, when you're behaving like that, she's like, he must not have much value, or he must not have that much status. That, like, why is he so timid? Why is he, you know what I mean? Why is he so passive? Why is he not um expressing himself with strength or showing any power or anything? He's, you know. So you got to be careful with that. And it's interesting because you have some alphas that, notice I'm saying weak, soft, unconfrontational, passive, timid, right? You can be sort of mysterious and silent and, calm and secure and come across as alpha, because there can be like a strength behind that. Like it's kind of like the guy who if you ever seen what's it called? The Godfather, right? The Godfather is not like loud and obnoxious and all that stuff. He's actually kind of, he's chill and relaxed and stuff like that. But he's alpha, right? Because there's a strength and there's a power and there's like a dangerousness and an intelligence he'll challenge you, like he'd be like, I don't agree with that, you know, or we're not gonna do it that way. We're gonna do it my way. It's more of like it's a chill, calm confidence, right? So that is not weak. That's not soft. That's not unconfrontational, passive, or timid. It's just, it's relaxed. It's chill. It's, I've been there, done that. I don't need to beat my chest, because I'm just grounded in who I am. So that's a different communication of alpha. So there's that, and then there's just like the guy who's just like soft. He's afraid to speak up for himself. He's afraid to speak his mind. He's afraid to express himself authentically. He's afraid to go for what he wants. That's beta, and that's weakness. So a woman may like a certain quality of a man because she may associate that quality with survival. So, for example, some women like big and tall men because those men tend to be more alpha, right? But it's not the fact that he's big and tall that's so important. It's the fact that she associates that with alpha. Like if being big and tall meant that a guy would be weak and that he would be soft and timid, then women wouldn't be so attracted to big and tall men, right? So the reason they're attracted to big and tall men is because typically, a big and tall man would be more alpha. So just understand that. So for example, if you're small and short, you can still attract women and trigger high levels of attraction in a woman if you display alpha characteristics in your self communication, right? So if you can display, you know, um, a big and tall man, right? She expects him to be more confident, for example, more assertive, more dominant, right? So if you're short and small, but you're still demonstrating that you're confident, assertive, and dominant, a woman will get with you, even though you may not be tall, but you're still sub-communicating to her that you're alpha, right? So she's still going to feel attraction for you. So it's not about being an asshole. Don't be one of those guys that think you need to become an asshole to get women. It's about becoming powerful and valuable. The goal is to demonstrate through your subcommunication that if a woman aligns with you, her life will improve. So a man who's demonstrating power and dominance and assertiveness and confidence and groundedness and all these great qualities, what it really means to her is that this guy is surviving at a high level, and if I align with him, my life will improve, right? Because if somebody's surviving at a high level and you're aligned with that person, you will benefit from that. So, even as a guy, if you see a guy who's demonstrating alpha qualities, you want to be his friend. Well, a woman, she's sexually attracted to him. She wants to have his babies, because if she has his babies, those babies are gonna have his qualities. So yeah, you gotta demonstrate that you are high value, high status, and this is done through your subcommunication. Um, your subcommunication, as I said, these are like the subtle things, like your tonality, your eye contact, your body language. I am going to talk a little bit about how you can improve your subcommunication, right? But you need to understand what it means to be a high value alpha male and demonstrate those qualities in your interactions with women. So you got to understand, like, maybe as an exercise, something you can do, and I've done this before, is like, when you go in an environment, like, see if you can identify who are like the guys who are demonstrating that they're high value and that they're alpha, right? And who are the guys who are demonstrating the opposite? Who are the guys that look like betas, that are demonstrating weakness and unattractive qualities that would repel a woman instead of attract her. Now, here we go. So to understand the subcommunication part of this, you'll have a hard time demonstrating alpha subcommunication until you reprogram your subconscious mind. Then it becomes effortless. So if you want to demonstrate alpha, high status, high value subcommunication, you have to reprogram your subconscious mind, right? Because if you try to do this consciously, it's gonna come across as like try hard. Like you're trying to be alpha, you're trying to be high status, and a woman can see past that. So you got to reprogram your subconscious mind, right? And that's a process in and of itself. But basically, that means you need to change the way you're thinking, your beliefs, your perceptions, and the way you feel, right? And that's a process, but it can be done. It can be done. One of the things you can do right now that will help you reprogram your subconscious mind and demonstrate more alpha subconscious traits is to become a man on a mission and live with passion, right? When you become a man on a mission, you'll naturally start to display alpha characteristics, like, as we mentioned, like being more assertive, more dominant, more focused, more disciplined, right? More perseverant. A guy who has a mission will naturally start developing those qualities. And also living with passion, like doing the shit you actually want to do versus doing shit that you feel like you have to do, right? So the key to truly changing your self-communication is to change your ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving to match the identity of a high value alpha male. So first you have to identify what is a high value alpha male, and it, we did go into like what that is on this presentation. And you have to develop that as your identity. Like, that has to become who you are. You have to actually believe that you are high status and you are high value and that you are an alpha, right? And if once you get to a point where you believe that, then your sub communications will show that, right? So by now you should have a very solid um, understanding of what women are sexually attracted to. You know, as I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, they're attracted to that man who can move them emotionally, you know, trigger intense and high frequency emotional states in her. And the guy who can do that is a guy who is displaying high value alpha sub communication. So if you want to learn how to display high value alpha sub communications, you want to actually learn a process, go through a process that will get you to a place where you are naturally and effortlessly demonstrating high value alpha sub communication, then send me a message or comment alpha below this video and we'll get in touch and I will give you some insight and show you a process on how I was able to make the transition from being a nice guy beta male to becoming a grounded, masculine, alpha, high value, high status man and demonstrating that in my sub communications. All right, I will show you how I made that transition. See you in the next videos. Peace.